The events of the film begin on a rainy night, and at that time we see Natalia and her mother driving their car towards the hospital. Because at that time Natalia is in labor, and her mother asks the doctor to bring the operating room immediately, because her daughter is giving birth, and during the birth, something very strange happens in front of them, which is that the child who is being born, he flies in front of them in the air in front of the astonishment of the grandmother, Natalie, and the doctor. But Natalie explains what happened in front of her, that she gave birth to an angel in this way. And at that moment the grandmother repeats that she will take her daughter and grandson and leave the hospital immediately without the hospital even being able to take their personal information, and when they go home, Natalie wants to know who he is. This is the boy's father, but Natalie says that she doesn't know who his father is because she had multiple relationships. At that moment, her mother says that it is dangerous for her son to go out of the house. The next day, when Natalie's mother wakes up from her sleep, she finds her grandson hanging from the ceiling of the house. Her daughter wakes up from her sleep to see what happened to her son. And at that moment the two of them are not able to explain the strange phenomena present in the child. So at that moment the grandmother decides to name the child Oscar. And this is in honor of the Americans because they are the only people who believe in supernatural phenomena. And the grandmother is afraid of people knowing the truth about Oscar because so when their neighbors and friends come to visit them and see the newborn, their grandfather Oscar makes excuses to them and swallows that the doctor forbids anyone from touching him because they have Oscar fixed to the bed. Then Natalie fixes the mattresses and pillows of the house to the ceiling to protect Oscar. Then the honorable people ask the grandfather about Oscar, and they are surprised that why they never go outside the house. Seriously, they hear that Oscar suffers from sun allergies, and that's why they can't take him outside the house. Days pass and Oscar grows a bit older, so his mother makes him a jacket with iron in it to keep it in place. On the ground, her idea actually succeeds, and when she presents the idea to her mother, and that Oscar is ready to go to school in this way, his grandmother refuses to let him leave the house. And Natalie does not want her son to live ignorant and uneducated, but her mother insists on her opinion and thinks that she is the one who will teach Oscar herself. And Oscar was always he watches Batman cartoons and sees him as his role model because he feels that he is similar to him. One day, Natalie and her mother enter the house and hear a breaking sound. He gasps, especially since they find the window open, but Oscar is sitting on top of the closet because of what happened. His grandmother closes all the windows with wood and nails because she is afraid that he will fly in the air and get lost. But Natalie wants her son to go out and see life like any normal child. And Nari is surprised by her mother's insistence on locking him up like this, so she says that she will protect him and that he will be with her safely, and indeed Natalie takes Oscar and goes outside the house for the first time in his life. Natalie asks her son to hide his true identity from anyone and act like Batman, whom he loves and watches. Because no one knew the true identity of Batman. Days pass, and every day Natalie takes her son for a walk with her in the street, until one day, Natalie leaves Oscar in front of a shop door and asks him not to move from his place until she goes in to buy some things and comes out. But Oscar is standing there, and he bumps into a girl against his will and falls to the ground, so he keeps apologizing to her, but the girl asks him to help her carry the water that was with her. At that moment Oscar is forced to he walks behind her, and then the girl tells him that her name is Ida, and Ida keeps talking to him and asks him about his school and his house. But Oscar's answers are very spontaneous, and he tells her that he doesn't know anything except that he lives with his mother and grandmother. But from walking a lot, Oscar feels tired, so he decides to lose weight, the extra iron that he carries in his pocket so that he can move much faster. And when she comes to her house, she asks Oscar for the bottles of water that he has with him. And at that moment Oscar thinks that he cannot give her to him because she is the weight that is making him stand on the ground. So at that moment she keeps trying to grab the water from him until Oscar flies in front of her in the air, but luckily for him, there was a roof above him that prevented him from flying, and then she came to know his true nature, so she kept helping him to get down to the ground. And then she gave him her bag so that he could stand on the ground, and she came to think that Oscar was a superhero who had supernatural powers like Superman. But Oscar asked, one of them is that she keeps his secret and never tells anyone about what she knows. At that time, Natalie is sitting scared and worried about her son until Oscar comes home late. At that time, his mother blames him for not listening to her and leaving the place where she left him. Oscar tells her that he met a girl named Agata and that she was the one who gave him the bag. At that moment, Oscar lies to his mother when he tells her that he did not tell her his secret. After that, she comes and pretends to love Oscar and goes to his house so that they can both sit and watch Batman cartoons. Days pass by while they play with. Some of his mother's days were happy because her son started living his life like a normal child, until one day her grandmother came to see him in front of Oscar's house because she came to take him to play with her. But Oscar was upset because of his clothes that made him look like an angel because he wanted a suit Batman, whom he loves, and from his grandfather's words. Natalie came to understand that Agatha knew the truth about her son, so her facial features changed. So after that, Natalie changed her treatment of Agatha, and when Agatha came to ask about him, she was told that he was not there and kept closing the door in her face every time she came to ask about him. At that moment, Oscar is upset that his mother prevented him from seeing his girlfriend, and because of the way Natalie treats him, his grandmother comes to blame her. But Natalie tells her that her son is currently busy with his studies, so he cannot go out. But she comes to tell her grandmother that Oscar does not go to school at all. So the news spreads among the neighbors are surprised when Oscar's grandmother finds the police at the house because of a complaint that was filed that Oscar is not studying. At that moment, the grandmother informs the police that Oscar is sick, but they are forced to promise the police that they will take him to school soon. Natalie actually takes her son to school, but she notices that the students leave their bags outside the classroom. At that moment, she is afraid that it is possible his truth is revealed, and then she decides to bring her son back. Years pass and Oscar reaches the age of youth. At that time, Oscar's grandmother grows old and Oscar still keeps the bag that he took from Agatha when he was young, and he was still using it to be able to be on the ground. One day, Oscar was sitting with a friend watching the match, and when the transmission was cut off, he repeated that he would use the phenomenon he had in front of the people to fly to the roof and fix the antenna. But they warned him not to do that or reveal his true identity to anyone. And then he actually did. Oscar thinks about backing down, and Oscar has a passion to know what people will say about him if they know his truth. But they are informed that the world is not as good as he imagines. But while Oscar was watching TV, he sees an advertisement for a program that talks about extraordinary talents, and those who talk in the media invite people. Those who have special abilities are those who present in the program. I think that he leaves the house at night while his mother is asleep and goes and presents in the competition. At that moment, his mother will see him on TV presenting his show in the competition. While Oscar was in the hotel, a stranger calls him and asks him to meet him. Oscar actually comes down. He meets him and learns that his name is David, and at that moment David asks him what he intends to do after he became the talk of the newspapers and magazines, and everyone is talking about him. And at that moment David offers him to submit offers, and in return he will take a percentage of 10% from him. But Oscar tells David that he has a wish that he can fulfill, which is that anyone who writes a book about him. David tells them that he will make his dream come true after he succeeds. David then tells them that he must have a stage name, so David tells them to call him the Anti-Gravity Man. David asks Oscar to sign the partnership contract that will be between them. After that, David offers Oscar a house so luxurious that Oscar can't believe he's going to live in it. Oscar starts performing in all the cities of Europe, and all the tickets for his concerts are sold. After that, Oscar becomes very famous, and his mother sees pictures on the covers of magazines. Oscar starts living a life of luxury to the point that when his mother calls him, he doesn't. He showers on her, and days pass by to the point that Oscar began to perform internationally. And after that he became a phenomenon, and a museum was created in his name. And a statue was also made for him in the village where he grew up. But despite all that happened, Oscar was not happy, and was upset with the broadcaster who talked about him on TV because she described his mother as a cruel mother. In addition to the talk, what is not true is what was said about him. But David is advised to forget his past and think that he only cares about his fame, which made him a millionaire, but Oscar sees himself as an acrobat. This is jealous of him being fed up because every time he presents the same show, but David prepares a surprise for Oscar, and then they get to know two people, and to become writers and publishers to hear his life story and turn it into a book, just as Oscar had dreamed. The writer promises Oscar that they will print 1 million copies of his book when it hits the market. But they are surprised that the author does not intend to write his real story, and that he intends to make up amazing stories about him so that they will remain exciting for the audience. But Oscar wanted the book he was talking about to be real. And David was surprised by Oscar and his ideas and told him that people were not ready to hear or read his real stuff. Why? Because people were interested in strange and supernatural stories. At that time, Natalie had arrived at the house where Oscar lived, and David was the one who he receives it because he was the one who sent it to her because he wanted to serve. Rise Oscar, and Oscar apologizes to his mother that he did not talk to her for the whole past period, and it is clear on Oscar that he is embarrassed by what he is doing in front of his mother to the point that he does not know how to speak in front of her. And Oscar invites his mother to one of his shows, and what he wears there is the angel set that his mother loved him to wear when he was little. But Oscar does something strange and unexpected, which is that he screams at the audience watching him and tells them that he is not an angel. And in this way Oscar ruins the show, and then David asks him why he did this, but Oscar tells them that he has had enough what he is doing and that he is unable to continue because he does not like his life this way. But David tells him that the past is many decades and that in this way they will be forced to pay very large penalty clauses, so Oscar is content to pay it all. But David tells him that if he thought the matter was as simple and easy as he thinks, he remains wrong because people will continue to pursue him throughout his life. At that time, Oscar will be told to inform the press that he has died so that the news of Oscar's death will actually spread on television, and that the cause of his death is unknown. The press goes to Natalie's house to ask her about the cause of Oscar's death, but days pass and Natalie dies. After that, we see Oscar after what? He changed his name and appearance, and we know that Oscar works as a receptionist in a hotel. But while he is sitting reading news in the newspapers, which is that David, his agent, owes 3 million euros and that he might go to prison for 5 years. But one night, Oscar notices that all the hotel guests are celebrating outside the hotel on the occasion of Christmas is only for one room, and its owner will be there. Foscari goes to check on her, but when the girl sees him, she goes out after him and calls him by his real name. At that moment, Oscar is surprised that she knew him. So he is afraid to lie to her and tells her that she was wrong. But the girl is surprised when she tells him that she came with the bag on his back. After that, Oscar and she go out together, and when they ask she came about the girl he loves, he tells Oscar that he loved only once in his life. And at that moment, Oscar hints to her that she is the girl he loves, and then she comes to wonder how the famous Oscar came to live in this place, and Agata understands that despite his fame, he is still poor. And then we discover that Agata works in prostitution, and it becomes clear to Okar that he is jealous of her and upset with what she is doing. But she comes wearing the same outfit that she used to wear when she was young, and the two of them go out together, and it becomes clear to them that they want to go back to the old days. And Okar begins to spend the happiest his days with Agata. And one day Oscar goes to the bank and tries to give David money that he owes her in order to save him from prison, but Oscar remains upset that Agata is still working as a prostitute. At that time, she comes to inform him that she is not ready to return to poverty again because she thinks that Agata is poor and that his love for her, he won't offer her anything. And then she comes to ask him to stay away from her and her life. Oscar actually repeats that he left her and went away, and then Okar returns to the same village where he lived when he was young and returns to his mother's house where he was raised. But they are surprised that Okar married Ida, and it becomes clear to Ida that she is expecting a new baby. To end the movie, Oscar achieves his dream while wearing the Batman suit and working happily because he feels that he is making the people around him happy. I will see you in other summaries. Bye.